People often ask me, does it get boring doing the same things again and again? But no, because it's the people you're performing with that makes it different. My standard trait, which I have to really check myself on especially when I'm meeting people after a show, is to think of everything that went wrong or not perfect. And the truth is, you can never do a perfect performance. You can always be better, which is, I guess, why that's in the back of my mind. It's easy for me to say now, having gone back and had success in other competitions, but it genuinely was the last time I really put a lot of weight on winning. Knowing what you don't want to do means you're one step closer to the things you do want to do. So I think it's so tough being at 14, 15, trying to make decisions that you think are so important. What grades am I going to get? Feel like the end of the world if I don't. Like, it's really not. It's important, but don't feel like your decisions you make at 15 are going to change your life, because, you can do anything at any point.
Hi, this is the SuccessFou podcast, and I am your host, Jennifer Devine. So today we have one of the world's most incredible and famous magicians with us. Edward Hilsum is here. He got his first magic set at the age of 6, and today he holds the prestigious title of the Magic Circle Triple Crown Champion. You're going to hear his SuccessFou story, how at age 7 he was called up on stage in a magic show, and that single event created and ignited a sensation of wonder in him that was so powerful that it still drives him today to bring that same feeling to his audiences. He's performed at the London Olympics and represented the UK at the World Championships of Magic. Today, he's even going to do some magic for the SuccessFou listeners and viewers, so please stay with us for his incredible story of how he got to where he is, how he overcame opposition to be one of the world's top performing magicians. Today, we welcome Edward Hilsum to the SuccessFou podcast. Welcome, Edward.
Thanks for having me, Jennifer.
It's so great to have you here.
Pleasure.
And you wanted to be a magician since you were 10 years old, and you studied psychology at uni. You grew up in and around London, going to various live performances and shows. Tell me, what first sparked your fascination with magic, or when was your fascination with magic ignited?
So definitely from as early as I can remember, I always loved the wonder that magic brought. Seeing magic, I just was obsessed by it. I was quite a shy kid, I would say, and most birthdays and Christmases, my mum and dad would get me some magic tricks. My dad worked away a lot and would always come back with a box of tricks. But there was one show that kind of sticks in my mind when I was about 7. It was at a party outside. We were in a marquee, and the magician picked me to help with a piece of magic, and I was so shy. I really didn't want to help, but he picked me, so I went along, and he did a piece of magic with me. And that is probably my earliest memory of feeling that sensation of wonder that really led to where I am now.
So when you were in that show at 7, were you able to be present once you were on the stage with the magician, being his helper, and actually watch the magic? Did the nervousness of being picked and the shyness go away when you joined him on stage?
That's a really interesting question. And my memory, to be honest, has probably changed a lot since I've thought back to that moment. And it's actually something I talk about in my show now. It begins with this moment of me feeling wonder for the first time. I think, to be honest, I probably certainly for the first half was not present at all, was just terrified I'm just going to mess something up and ruin his show. But the trick was actually a bit different to how I describe it in my show. He did a cut and restored rope trick.
Oh, what?
So he took a long piece of rope and cut it in half, tied the ends together, and then with a bit of magic, the knot slid off the rope and the rope was restored. And then he gave me that knot. And that knot I took home, and it sat on my bedside table. And I think most days I would untie and tie it again. And I did this so much, played with this knot until it completely frayed into lots of little pieces. So I do tell this story in my show, but I changed it to I wanted to do a piece of magic with some coins. So the moment is real, a bit of artistic license, I guess. But I think of that time and it's a real moment for me when I talk about that moment of wonder. But instead of a rope trick, I do something with coins.
That's your first trick that you do on stage?
Well, it's sort of the centerpiece of my stage show. So I like keeping a bit of mystery around it for those that come and see it live. But it's the moment of wonder, and that's the first thing I talk about, is being that, I guess, 7-year-old kid experiencing wonder for the first time.
That's cool. So you kept with your dream of magic, and throughout secondary school, all through high school for the Americans, you were practicing magic on the side. Did you do any shows through high school? Did you do any talent shows, anything like that before you got onto uni and psychology?
Yeah, so before uni, I definitely knew magic was the thing that was the dream job for me. So I had friends that wanted to be footballers and astronauts and firefighters. For me, I wanted to be a magician. So, yeah, I guess there was another big turning point in being inspired, which was seeing an American magician on TV in one of these like 50 greatest magic trick type shows, where you see a countdown from 50 to 1 of the best magic in the world. And one of the top 5, I didn't know at the time, I just saw a few seconds of this American magician making doves appear. And his name is Lance Burton. He was a Las Vegas headliner, the first American world champion, a real superstar. But that image of seeing these doves appear became, I was already doing a little bit of card magic and coin magic and some classics of magic, but I'd just never seen anything like this. And so whenever I thought of magic from that moment on, I just pictured these doves appearing, like fire, and then a dove appearing over their heads and coming back to him. So that became, I guess, my specific dream. So not just being a magician, but being able to do this type of magic, which looking back seems so mad. But as a kid, you don't really think about the practical side of it. So in my head, I just knew I wanted to do that sort of act. So it became asking my mum and dad every Christmas and sort of jokingly at the beginning that I want doves, I want doves, I want doves. And about 4 years later, I got my first doves when I was 16. So this became, I think, when magic started becoming really serious in my life.
But how did you even learn how to do it? Did you buy a book? Were there classes anywhere at the time? How did you get a mentor? Like, how did you even learn how to do magic?
So at the beginning, it was these magic sets, which are available all over the world, with basic magic tricks like the cups and balls, that all made out of plastic. But I used to love my magic sets. And so early days, it was just those. And then I got one box of tricks. That was the Magic Circle box of tricks. And that had a flyer for the Young Magicians Club. So the Magic Circle, for international watchers may not know, it's a big magic club in the UK with international members. So Lance Burton, who I mentioned, David Copperfield, they're all members of this club. And you have to be 18 to join. But for 10 to 18-year-olds, there's the Young Magicians Club. And so there was a flyer for this club, and I joined when I was 12 and started going to their monthly meetings when I was 13. And I guess that's when it kind of stopped being, or went from being just a crazy dream to, I can do this as a profession, because real magicians would come and teach us every month. So, Paul Daniels and Darren Brown and, the top magicians would come and share with us and be there for us to all learn from.
Were they your early idols, some of those musicians you mentioned?
So Lance Burton was one that definitely inspired me to do the style of magic that I became kind of known for in the magic world with the doves and that silent act. But then I was a kid of the 90s, so David Blaine was huge for me. He made magic cool again. Well, but I didn't know it wasn't really cool before that, but I know in the UK it had a bit of a cheesy sort of stereotype. But David Blaine's cool street magic was absolutely everything I wanted to do. And then Darren Brown was kind of the UK's answer to David Blaine before Dynamo came along a bit later. So David Blaine and Darren Brown were two big influences on me. And I realize we've got a long way around on your question, but certainly Darren opened that psychology door for me. And so sowed those early seeds of what is psychology and how is that related to magic, and so eventually led to me studying psychology.
Right. And so when you went to uni to study psychology, where did you study?
I studied at UCL, University College London.
Oh, right. It's a very good school.
And is 10 seconds walk from the Magic Circle.
Oh, right.
Which is a nice coincidence. It did definitely, it was a very good uni.
Decision factors.
Yeah, for sure.
So you could do magic and go to uni.
Well, also, I wanted to be able to get home to look after the doves. So they are, which I still have.
Pets.
Yeah, they are my pets.
And you still use those same pets in your show?
Yeah, they're family. So they are.
Oh, wow.
I don't work with them as much as I used to, but still, yeah, they're there. So they're semi-retired.
Tell me about how you got into psychology, and could you have just gone into magic?
Yeah, so actually, I was very lucky to see Lance Burton live. So this first magician with the doves I spoke about in Las Vegas, because we heard he was about to close his show, and having amazing family, they said, you got to go see him live. So it was a dream come true. I got to see him live, and I wrote to him. And I didn't hear back, but turns out my mum also wrote. And so we were in the front row, and just before the show started, a lady who I later found out is his personal assistant met us and wanted to know a bit more about me. And I was getting a bit annoyed because the show seemed to be starting. I just wanted to watch the show, and she said, "Do you need to go anywhere after the show?" And then I instantly realised. And we were like, no. And he said, stay in your seats. Lance will come and meet you. So I was like a kid at Christmas. It was actually Christmas, funnily enough. But yeah, so I was sitting through his whole 90-minute show knowing I was about to meet him. And something amazing I found out later. I've got to know Lance a little bit. And every kid that wrote into Lance, he would meet after the show. But not only that, he actually, because he got asked the same questions again and again, he wrote this beautiful little book called Advice that he would just give to every kid that he met after the show. And one of the big bits of advice he had was, get your education. And so I did kind of take that to heart, but also I did well at school, and I sort of wanted the uni experience before, moving out completely. So I went to a good school where it was, what are you going to study at uni? Not, are you going to go to uni, really was the question. So it was, I guess I did want to go straight into magic, but also, I guess the right person telling me, get an education, and also genuinely being interested in psychology, which was quite different. At secondary school, I studied further maths and physics, which was very analytical, and I was sort of done with those subjects. But then finding out a little bit more about psychology and how that can relate to magic ultimately led to me, having a bit of a change and going to university for that. So
was it your math results that got you into UCL? Because it's a really great school, I've heard, for math. Further math.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the best, I think it still is, for psychology too. I think at the time it was third in the world for psychology, because it's got some of the best researchers in the world.
So did you actually become a psychologist, a working, practicing psychologist at all after uni?
No, so actually the week after I graduated, I was straight into magic full time, and looking back, the stars really did align. So I had a 2-month opportunity in Belarus, of all places. Yeah, which is kind of in the news now for different reasons. But it was an amazing place for me to go and see just another culture entirely. And then I came back from there, and
you did magic there?
Yeah, so they built me a little theatre, and I did some community shows, was going to orphanages and all sorts of places where people really didn't see magic. And it's a very interesting place in terms of it's not somewhere people go to visit. It's quite a difficult country to get to, and to be allowed to do shows. So I was there with the group. It was really, the goal was to help people that needed, to shows for people that it was the last thing they'd imagine they'd see. So, going to really remote villages and people with different needs. And it really opened my eyes, I think, especially fresh out of uni, to what is important. And even a lot of people we went to and communities we went to had very little, but were happy and welcomed me with open arms as a stranger. And I sort of had the feeling I was being valued by who I was rather than what I had. And I think it opened my eyes to how different people see the world. And just after that, I became well, a touring show that ends up being a big part of my life called Champions of Magic started the month after that. So that was all straight out of uni. Everything was just at the right place at the right time.
What is Champions of Magic?
So it's still going. I left the show at the beginning of 2018, but from 2013, I was in the first ever show and was in every show for the next 5 years. And it started as a UK tour, ended up touring North America. And then after 5 years, it was time for a new challenge. But it was sort of where I learnt my craft, I would say. So I got picked as the young guy to be opening the show with my act with the Doves. I had a couple of other pieces of magic in the show. And there were 4 acts, 5 magicians in the show. And we all had different styles of magic. So it was amazing to be able to tour the world, really, with a big magic show. In the end, we were on a tour bus. It was quite rock and roll. You know, we would do a show, pack up, get on the bus, be driven to the next state or city in the country, and wake up in a new town and do the show. It was eat, sleep, repeat.
Tell me how psychology helps you. Like, how has psychology been taken a role in your magic show? Like, what does psychology have to do with magic? How does it help create a show?
It's really hard to answer that precisely, because I think studying anything at uni teaches you a way of thinking. And certainly I can't say I loved the actual studying of psychology in the way it was examined, but I do love psychology now. And, you know, when you're not being judged at it. But I think the best magic is when it's performed in the moment and really connects with people. And so there's so much, you know, how you interact with people and how you, every decision you make has psychology behind it, whether you're aware of it or not. So I guess I would say you learn more about psychology of magic by performing magic, but by studying psychology, I guess I sort of had an added knowledge. And it's actually a really hot topic now, the psychology of magic. And I am still a part of that world. It was something I was fascinated in, of course, when I was studying psychology, trying to link it to my magic. And there were studies like from the 1900s, and then there was very little that had been done until like 10 years ago. But there are some really fascinating areas of research of, like, you can put eye tracking equipment on people so you can see them looking in the right place to discover a secret, but they don't notice it, for example. I mean, I don't know if this makes any sense, but I could go down this rabbit hole for hours. But you can really now, you know, investigate the effectiveness of certain magic tricks with psychology techniques to study how effective is this. The things that magicians think are effective, are they when you actually put them in a test environment? And equally, you can use magic tricks to look at areas of psychology like awareness and eyewitness testimony and these sorts of fascinating areas that are very relevant to day-to-day life.
What do you love most about being a magician?
There's so much I like. Yeah, I love being able to give people that feeling of wonder. I think if I had to say one thing, yeah, for sure, that people often ask me, does it get boring doing the same things again and again? But no, because it's the people you're performing with that makes it different. You know, there's no such thing as magic when it's me at home practicing. It happens in your mind, the audience's mind. So I very much always try and share magic with people being at the center of it. And so seeing someone's reaction is what makes it real and exciting for me.
How much have your parents been a factor in your ability to be a successful magician? Were they supportive in the early years, or were they like, not sure you're going to make a living doing that? Because it's not a mainstream like lawyer, doctor, banker, right?
For sure. I think, for sure, they were incredibly supportive. I mean, firstly saying yes to the Doves, letting me take over the garden with an aviary and a shed. And then I outgrew the shed and moved into the lounge. And would literally, if you ever see videos of Lance Burton, he takes these matches out and just throws them. And I would do this on my mum's beautiful carpet. It was covered in singe marks. But she was never really angry, unless never really showed me it. So
mom.
incredibly supportive. Would drive me around the country through the middle of the night to competitions and shows. And my brother too, I've got to say. I remember my first year at uni, I had a show in France, and my brother took me and drove through the channel, all that stuff that even the early days of the Champions and Magic Tour, we were driving, but I wasn't really driving. So family would drive me all around the country to Wales, up to Scotland. So I look back and think I was incredibly lucky, because those early shows, there was maybe a few pounds expenses in it, but I certainly wasn't doing it for the money. And my parents would pay the petrol and, make sure that was never a factor. And then taking me to Las Vegas to see my heroes. I met David Copperfield, Lance Burton, Penn and Teller, So having all those moments of inspiration for sure. Like, who knows, maybe I wouldn't have stayed with it if they didn't support me as much as they did.
So having supportive parents are essential. You're lucky.
I think so. Yeah, I feel very lucky. But I guess I don't know any different, right?
Yes, right.
Looking back, I realize how lucky I was, for sure.
Yeah, and they're lucky too. They have a successful son.
But I guess also going back to your question of school, I had really good grades going throughout school. So I think that was probably, who knows, they may have done it anyway. But because I was a good kid and was delivering at school, looking back now, I realized that was a factor in them being happy to, I guess, inspire me down that path, knowing it's not because I'm not going to become distracted at school,
Would you give the same advice to young people about going to school, get a degree? If you want to study magic, still go to school?
Yeah, I guess, look, it has set me in good stead, right? So I can't say it's the wrong way to go. But that being said, I've got friends that did go straight into magic and are doing great things. So it's not the only way, but I think, I don't know if I would have regretted not following that path, because I've met some of my best friends that I'm still friends with now from university, a couple of very good friends that I spent time with there and wouldn't have met them. So I certainly don't regret going down that path. Would I have done different things? For sure. I mean, there was a couple of things I turned down because I was at university. I was really questioning, should I drop out and do these things? But looking at the way things have turned out, I think.
Yeah, you made some good decisions.
Yeah.
It worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, well done. Did you ever have self-doubt about magic or performing, or have you ever had a bad show where people didn't get it or didn't, hecklers or anything like that? Have you ever had any, you do a show and you're like defeated in one way or another, or however that might look? Where have you faced any opposition or challenges?
Yeah, I think different places at different times. I'm certainly my own harshest critic, and I think that's pretty common. I think anyone that really cares about what they're doing, like, my standard trait, which I have to really check myself on especially when I'm meeting people after a show, is to think of everything that went wrong or not perfect. And the truth is, you can never do a perfect performance. You can always be better, which is, I guess, why that's in the back of my mind. But I grew up doing competitions, really, and it can be tough, and I remember sort of putting this act together when I became familiar with the Magic Circle. There's a big competition called the Young Magician of the Year. That's every 2 years, and I realized after seeing it, I'm nowhere near ready, but I'm going to put this act together, and that became my goal, to win that competition. So I put this act together with a 4-year plan, really, at the age of, I guess, I was 13 when I first became aware of it. And so entered the competition when I was 17, going on 18. And I had just won another competition at the Magic Circle so the Young Magicians Club has its own competition, and then this was the Magic Circle Young Magician of the Year. So I was very excited to enter, felt ready. And as a kid, people tell you you're great, you believe it. So I guess I was believing my own abilities, did my act, and, people before the results were congratulating me. So I was like, oh, thank you. So I kind of believed I'd won it. And then the results come out and I didn't even place. And looking back, I think with a bit of perspective now, I realize I put so much pressure on that
On winning.
You know, the fact that that was my goal, and I didn't really see beyond it, that you win that competition and then you become a magician. I hadn't really even thought about what happens if you don't, because that was just never an option. But of course, that's not in my control.
Yeah.
I can only do what I do on stage, and then it's up to the judges. And for whatever reason, I didn't win. And I really didn't want to do magic anymore. Like, I was devastated, absolutely destroyed, you know. And because there was a second opportunity, that it was done. I didn't win.
And it's only every 2 years.
Yeah, and then I was going to be too old.
Right, because you can only do it if you're 18 and under or 17 and under.
Yeah, so it's the Young Magician of the Year. So yeah, I was, and also all my friends and family were there. Like, everyone from school came. I filled up 4 rows of the theatre. So not only did I not win, it was in front of everyone I knew, basically. So that was pretty much rock bottom, it felt like at the time. Looking back, it sounds a bit silly, but for me as a kid, it was everything. And then I think the best thing that could have happened, because I was already booked in 2 days after that. I was flying out to Buffalo, New York to be in this big magic convention. It was for the Society of American Magicians, and I had been picked to be in their Stars of Tomorrow show. So I was in the show, and I think ultimately that's the best thing for any performer. If you have a bad experience, is just get back on stage, right? And it was my first experience performing in America, and American audiences are certainly a lot more positive than just generally speaking. And so being a kid in America, I got a lot of praise, which is exactly what I needed at that time, to be told you're not awful, and, and gave me a bit of confidence back. And so to have that so soon after that, what felt like the end of the world, of course it wasn't, but it felt like the end of the world to me, was like, okay, life is okay. And
it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
So let's go back to that moment just for a second when you had every intention of winning. Mm-hmm. And what you should think that, right? You're going for something, you've worked really hard, you put in the time. I'm going to win. What thoughts did you tell yourself when you didn't win?
Well, you think the worst, don't you? You think, it sounds crazy now, but
things like, oh, I suck, I really can't do this, I'm illusioned about it. Like, what were some?
Well, it just makes you question everything you believed, I get. Like when people tell you you're great and you're going to win, but even the other, just being told, wow, you're fantastic, blah, 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 blah. And then the evidence you have being, oh, I'm not. But actually the two aren't contradicting, but
you can still be great and not place number one.
Exactly.
Because it's just humans voting at the end of the day, isn't it?
Right. And so I think looking back, it was very healthy, because I think if I'd have won, my ego would have probably been out of control. And because in my head, seeing past winners go on to become magicians, like professional magicians, I didn't really think about the work that goes in after that. I thought this was like the magic spell. You win this competition and you have a career. Of course you don't. You still need to carry on working. But I think it's easy for me to say now, having gone back and had success in other competitions, but it genuinely was the last time I really put a lot of weight on winning. So
it was the last time.
Yeah. Because after that, I'd worked for 4 years. I literally would get home from school, practice my act, do my homework. Like, that was a routine. I just used to rehearse. I used to love rehearsing because you could see yourself getting better, but that was the goal. And that's when I guess my mindset shifted to actually competitions are a great deadline to strive to improve for. And perhaps that's not just, I've had other deadlines since then of committing to a show, whether that's doing a show in your local theatre or going to the Edinburgh Festival or saying yes to something that pushes you out your comfort zone. As a kid, competitions are the things that are easy to go, that's my deadline, because they're available. So I carried on doing competitions, but after that, what felt like the world is ending, I realized, okay, all I can do is control my performance. I can just do my best, but at the end of the day, it's up to 4 people's subjective opinions. And that doesn't mean they hate me. Yeah. It just means their preference on the day was different. And I can't control that, but I can control how I deliver on the day and my mindset on the day. So I think that's really what changed. And thankfully I was able to, get over the disappointment thanks to the shows that happened and the friends around me that really helped pick me up.
That sounds like a really powerful template of success for you, to have the distinction of knowing what you can control and what you can't control, and doing the best on the variables that you can control. I can practice my magic trick. I can deliver. I can do the best with what's at hand. But what's not in my control is people voting.
Yeah, and it's actually something I've later found. So Derren Brown is an amazing thinker as well as performer, and he wrote a book called Happy. And I guess I was able to identify that was my shift after reading his book, because he describes quite a stoic mindset for happiness, which is to focus on the things you can't focus on the things you can control, because if you waste energy on things you can't control, that's just going to lead to frustration, because ultimately you can't control those things. Whereas if you just think about your own thoughts and actions, which you can control, anything else that happens, it lets you just see them in a way where you can understand what other people are coming from. You know, you might not understand why they're doing what they're doing, but you know that's not something you can control. So it just lets you take a step back and go, you know,
and just
take a breath, and what can I control?
Gives you freedom.
Yeah.
I like that. And I want to learn more about that book. Is he a magician? The one who wrote Happy?
Derren Brown is an incredible performer. So he's a mind reader, magician. He's sort of, is a psychological illusionist, which is a term that was put on him, but he does magic, mind reading, psychology, a bit of everything, hypnosis. It certainly became a bit of a template for me, you know, wanting to emulate him. So he does big West End shows and tours every year, TV. So I saw him on TV in the early 2000s.
Oh, cool.
But he's still a big name in the UK.
So when you hang out with friends, are all your friends like other famous magicians and you guys hang out together?
Well, I've got to know most of my heroes, but I'd love to say they were good friends, but no. So like, I know Derren a little bit. We've met a few times, and I remember getting a tweet after a show. I didn't know he was in the audience, and a tweet from him was like, oh my God, life made. Because, you know, cool. Someone that has inspired me so much, just giving me a little bit of praise, was like, oh my gosh, you're over the moon that someone you look up to like what you did. And some of my heroes have become good friends, which is kind of mad.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
How do you come up with your magic? Am I using the right word when I say trick?
No, don't worry. I struggle with how to define it. Yeah. I mean, there is a line of thought where when you call it a trick, is that the right thing? Because certainly when I try, and it's not about tricking people, it's not about fooling, but at the heart of every impressive magic routine, if you don't know how it works, then it's not magic in this form. But there's no one answer, to be honest. So certainly at the beginning, I was copying my heroes. So my Dove act was an emulation of Lance Burton at the beginning.
How did you know how to do that act?
Oh yeah, you did ask this at the beginning, and I never answered it. So I feel quite old thinking back, but I was getting into magic when the internet was only really just starting, just bubbling away. YouTube wasn't really a big thing. So there wasn't a lot of places to... Now you can search most things and get a lot of answers, right?
Yeah.
But I had the Magic Circle, so I was asking actual magicians, and they were giving me... And at the Magic Circle, there's a library, so there's a lot of history down there and a lot of secrets. But certainly that area of dove magic, and doing magic, creating doves from nowhere, there's not... At the time, there wasn't a huge amount. There still isn't, but... So I was sort of writing to the few people that I knew that did it, that I looked up to, and would piece things together. Every now and then a new video would appear on YouTube. I was like, oh my gosh, I could see this, because I'd never seen it live. So yeah, piecing things together, asking people for advice, and then just having a go, really. There's an amazing coincidence that I was at school in a maths class, and the boy that just happened to be sat next to me said, my brother's a magician. And I said, okay. And I think when you're a teenager, you kind of think you know everything. So we're just assuming he's rubbish, you know. And then he said he has doves. I'd never met anyone else that actually had doves, let alone, was what I wanted to do. So he ended up becoming my first mentor, this kid's brother. His name was Jonathan Shotton, and he's sort of gone out of magic now, but doing amazing things. And he's designed illusions for theme parks and experiential things in all different areas. But some of my first doves came from him. This chance, the fact that I was at school with this kid whose brother was a magician in this specific area that I wanted to go into. So he was really my first mentor, and I think that's where my magic really went up a notch. I used to go over to his place. We used to sit in his garage. He used to watch me out, give me notes, edit some music for me, like really detailed feedback. And he really took me through up to that Young Magician of the Year point.
And do you mentor a lot of young magicians? I have to be careful not to say musician.
Yeah, I've been introduced as a musician, Young Musician of the Year many times. I think it just naturally happened in that I was very lucky that a lot of people I wrote to gave me a lot of advice and became mentors. Yeah. And similarly, I've always just tried to help anyone that asked me for advice. And there are certainly acts that I've mentored more and, become good friends with. And sort of amazingly, full circle, that club, the Young Magicians Club where I started, I met one of my best friends there. We now run that club together. So for the last just over 2 years, I'm now running the club where it all started for me.
And where is it located in London?
So it's at the Magic Circle, has a headquarters in Euston, just near Warren Street. It's a physical place where...
And can anyone sign up to go? You just pay a membership fee?
Anyone 10 to 18 can join. And anywhere all over the world, we've made it international, so you can join the sessions on Zoom. There's a big archive of past meetings and magazines, and I'm biased, but if it wasn't for that club, I don't think I would be doing magic now. And so we are really passionate about making it as productive as we can for anyone, wherever in the world you are.
How many members does it currently have internationally?
We have just under 300 members.
Only 300 members?
Yeah. Well, the sad thing is we lose them because when you turn 18, you can no longer become a member. But even so, but you are fast tracked into the Magic Circle if you are still into magic. So our goal is that you graduate into the Magic Circle. But it's just an amazing place for kids to socialize, meet other kids with the same interest. I'm often asked, how do you help kids get into magic? And I think it is finding your tribe and finding people like you, because I was the only one at school that was into it, but suddenly seeing 80 other kids like me is very inspiring, It is. And some of my best friends to this day I met there.
Yeah, that's really cool, actually. Yeah. Are you ever not thinking about magic? Is it something that's sort of...
Rarely. Yeah, it's hard to... I guess I am a little bit obsessed by it, but I love going to the theatre, watching movies. I get anything artistic I do enjoy. I try and switch off. But magic is just my biggest love, I think.
And what does the future hold for you? Because it sounds like you've won all the awards there is to win in the Magic Circle. You've done Vegas.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. What is next? What are your big goals that you're creating now? What's next for you? It seems like you've met all these goals. Then where do you go when you're at the top?
Yeah, no, you're right.
It's a better question.
It is kind of tough to think about that because it's amazing to think I've done more than I ever really dreamed was possible. I think, as a kid, I just wanted to be a magician. So the fact I've been able to sustain myself through magic feels like a big achievement. And then to have gone on to do some really exciting things that I never really expected. Darren Brown was a big hero of mine, and I've performed in the same theatres that I saw him perform in, shared the same dressing room space. And so literally following in my hero's footsteps, it's like I do pinch myself. But in terms of future things, I just really want to carry on doing I'd love to bring my show to the West End. So I've been very fortunate to be in a show with other magicians. I'd love to... The show I'm working on now feels really me. It feels authentic, and I love the magic in there. So I'd love to share that with audiences.
So to have your own show.
To have my own, a few days in the West End would be a bit of a dream. I'm also representing the UK in the upcoming World Championship of Magic,
which does that take place?
So it's once every 3 years. I did do it last time around in Canada, in Quebec, and this year it's in Turin, Italy. So I'm preparing for that right now, and that will be 2 of my original pieces of magic.
How can people watch that besides live getting tickets and going to?
Yeah, it is quite.
Is it televised? It must be, right?
I'm not sure. Historically, it has been. Last time, I think there was like a film crew, but you never quite know what's going to happen to it. So I don't have the answer, I'm afraid. Like, you can buy a ticket, but it's quite intense just awarding you. It's like 5 days of competitors.
Wow.
It's everyone.
One person from every country in the world.
Yeah, I mean, last time I was the only one from the UK. Thankfully, there's a few more of us from the UK. Team GB now. Every country sort of putting their best magicians forward. It's hard to say. It's not necessarily the best, but, people are doing really interesting stuff, really interesting performances. So it's a lot of magic over 5 days, but you really see what people have spent their sort of lives working towards, and the best of the best.
Yeah, cool. I mean, that's big. I was going to say, how do you, when you're at the top, where do you get not the energy, the creativity to create another dream? Because I really believe life is all about creating the next dream, right? When you stop dreaming, you die.
Yeah.
And just generating from dream to dream, and then you make that dream into another one.
Yeah. I don't know if this answers the question, but I certainly find when I perform the magic that really feels authentically me, I found that very fulfilling. And that does keep me driving forward. And also, like I said, some of the things I've done, I never really even dreamt of being possible opportunities. And by just putting myself out there, doing work that connects with me, sort of by definition connects with others, and you never know who's going to be in that audience. Some of the most exciting things I've done have just come from people seeing me in a show and going, oh, you'd be great for this. And that might be something I never knew was even possible. So I think it's just about keep doing work I believe in and getting it on stages in front of people.
And do you have any thoughts on how AI is going to change the face of being a magician? I see it in almost every other industry using AI and literally everything. I don't know how it will be used in the world of magic, but I was wondering what your thoughts are on that.
I don't know if I have any profound thought. I mean, I find it scary and amazing, I think, in equal measure. What I do know from history is every new technology that's come in over every century, you could say magicians were scared was going to be the end of magic, but then magic just lives on because I think there's always room for mystery. And I think magic always evolves.
Yeah, but you bring the human element, I suppose, as well. Like a robot will never be able to do magic the way a human can, because you bring your personality and there's a story that's created, right? And it always comes full circle by the end.
Yeah, who knows where AI will take magic, but for me, certainly, my favorite magic and the magic I enjoy watching and performing is all about connection with people. And so who knows, AI may become phenomenal at reading people and, that side of things, but...
We're probably far from that right now.
Yeah.
I think. Hopefully we'll all have like robots living in our house doing like the grunt work before we get to that point.
For sure. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know where AI is going to take us. I know people are using it in every creative world.
Yeah. Was there a biggest challenge in transitioning from a child performer to a professional performer? Was that a big transition, or were you just taking steps and then you just got there? And I guess I have the question of, at what point are you officially using it as a source of making a living? Because you can do hobby for a long time, and early on you said, it's not going to, little things in the beginning, you didn't make money, you did it because you loved it. At what point is it lucrative where you're like, oh, this is a proper profession, I don't need to have a backup plan, like, good, paying the rent, living the life I want? At what stage?
I would say pretty recently, to be quite honest, in that, again, my parents were very supportive, and it was never really a factor in any of those early opportunities. I just said yes to opportunities. I guess it was part of like knowing your value, but also learning, So going back to that touring show I was in, could I have paid my bills with it? Probably not, because it was only like a few shows a month, but it was all I thought about, but because I was living at home and didn't have bills, I didn't have to worry about. So, having that supportive environment meant I could just focus on the magic and creating the magic I wanted to perform. And I think it was partly I don't know. Leaving the show was for a number of reasons. I feel like I grew in that 5 years, and where I wanted to go was just very different to where that show was going. And I think my best work came from after leaving that show. So the competition success I had came from the material I created after that show. And then I think COVID happened not long after that, and that was a really big factor. So I was kind of approaching 30, thinking, what do I want to do? I was in a relationship, still living at home, not having my own place. And so I think COVID was a real reset button in a way of thinking, okay, I've focused on the passion side of this business, because it is a business. And I think people often joke it's show business, and a lot of performers focus on the show part and forget about the business. I think it's fair to say I was very much on the show part, and then COVID coming along and realizing, okay, what is my future? Was a bit of a reset to focus on, okay, let's generate some work that can help me move to the next stage in my life. So, yeah, I mean, if I had stayed with that show, I would have probably been able to sustain myself, but ultimately I would have been sort of feeling like I was in a bubble I didn't want to be in. So, yeah, I think COVID coming at that time in my career was sort of everything together to push that button on. Let's find out how I can sustain myself a bit more. And that's when I started to look at the marketing side and generating my own work without one producer going, we're going to book you for these dates, which, from a mental health side isn't the healthiest place to be in either. Yeah.
So in COVID, that's when you created Love Variety? Is that right? During COVID?
You've done your research. No, so Love Variety actually goes way back. So
Tell us about, first of all, what is Love Variety for people just listening?
Yeah.
And what inspired you to start it?
Yeah, so going back to my time at uni, I was getting to do shows with, I'd often be invited to variety type shows, comedy nights, where I'd be the only magician, there'd be a comedian, maybe some weird and wonderful acts like a contortionist, a hypnotist, burlesque dancer, all amazing things that I realized my friends weren't seeing either on TV or live. In the public eye, you'd see sort of Britain's Got Talent, which was dancers and singers, but you wouldn't see these amazing people that I was getting to see in the amazing variety circuits of London. So it started for me as just bringing these talented people to my university, putting on public shows so my friends could see them. And it was never about the money. It was always just whatever was made on the door got split between the acts, and everyone did it for the love of doing it, because I promised them a great night with a great audience. And I think from being on the performing side of things, I knew how to put together a fun night for the acts as much as the audience. And ultimately that just makes it the best night possible, because if you feel comfy as an artist, you're going to do the best job you can, and everyone will love it. Win-win.
Yeah, I love that.
So it really was born out of just that genuine passion of wanting to share talented people with the world. And they were really popular. So I guess Love Variety was formed in a way from, it's two things. So one of my big heroes is a pickpocket called James Friedman, and
He does it as a show.
Yeah, so he's an entertainment pickpocket, an honest pickpocket. And from a very early age, I got one of his books and videos and was learning pickpocketing as like probably a bit too young a kid, but was trying it at school. And he became a real hero of mine. And he was the first person I asked to be in these shows. And he said yes. You know, like I was saying at the beginning, it's a very small world. And it's amazing. If you ask people in the right way, it's amazing the positivity you get back. So he said yes. He came, and I think he was probably a bit inspired by what I was doing. I think, he said that to me since. And just after that, I had graduated. He asked me to co-write and direct his first theatre show. And my initial response was, I can't do that. And he said, well, I've seen what you've done. I think you'd be great. And so that was the start of this, I guess, a partnership that lasts to this day. So that was 12 years ago.
Oh, so he's your partner at Love Variety.
So, yeah, I guess not officially, but he has his own his own company producing magic and magic shows, and everything I've done in the last 12 years he's been a part of, and I think so we've written together my last 2 shows. He co-wrote and directed. I've directed his shows and written with him, and we've been on this amazing journey since, and that's just from me, I guess, putting myself out there to do it, but never really thinking of it as a commercial possibility. But he was the one that really pushed me to go, no, this is a thing that you should pursue. And so that became my company. And since then, predominantly it's me performing, but I also produce private shows at events when it's suitable. And often when I'm booked to do magic, people say, oh, do you have any ideas for other entertainment, or do you know a DJ, or do you know this and that, or we'd like a bit of a show, can you recommend? And I bring in everything, the stage management, the lights, the sound, and we put on the best possible show for the event. And I love that, when you can bring talented people and tailor it so you have the right people at the right event at the right time. That's what creates the biggest impact.
To that Saturday night show that has all these different...
We have done a few public shows. It's, it's one of those things that requires a lot more time and energy. And I have done it, but part of my refocus, I guess, on the business side is to, let's do I do so. I heard a quote once where there's things that satisfy the soul and satisfy, the business side. And so I try and balance the two equally.
It sounds like it could be a big opportunity for an annual variety show, a Love Variety show that could raise a lot of money. Everyone wants to kick off their year to magic, right?
Yeah,
magic
for sure.
And fresh talent and live talent. I'd buy tickets to that show. It'd be nice. I was hoping you were going to say, oh yeah, we do it monthly, or we do it on Saturday night. And I'd be like, where can I buy?
No, I have in the past. And now I guess there are shows happening at the Magic Circle that some of them I help produce behind the scenes.
But that's just the kids under 18?
No, so there are some public shows coming up, but depending on when this goes out, I'm not sure.
Where can people find a list of all the magic shows? I know where to find theater. If I want to go see a live performance, I know how to find that.
Yeah.
I don't know where to go to find a magic show.
There is no huge amount, but if people are interested in knowing the things I'm involved with that I can vouch for, then my social media is probably the best place. So like Instagram? Yeah, and I have a mail list where I don't spam, but only a couple of times a year I'll put out the things that I'm involved with that I'm performing in or producing / directing. So.
And your website is?
It's me, edwardhilsum.com. Yeah.
Okay, and do you have Edward Hilsum as your handle on Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat and
all those
Facebook
places.
And,
Yeah.
So it's also, that's good. That's lucky to get your full name and own all those handles.
Well, I don't think it's that common a name, thankfully. If you can spell it right, you'll find me.
I touched on this slightly before, but what are the main income streams for a professional magician? So you have stage shows, corporate events, private groups where people hire you to come to a party, which I want to do, and TV appearances. What else? What other streams if someone's going to the field of being a magician?
To be honest, there's a lot more than I really use, I guess. I should be more involved. But I really consider performing as my income stream. So there's lots of areas of performing, those that you mentioned. So private parties, corporate functions, stage shows, to me, that's performing.
Yeah.
There's areas of performing that I don't earn an income stream from, but you do for other reasons. And there's charity performances that I'm involved with. But there are other areas that I know there are some friends of mine who are incredibly creative on social media and they're people that now make their living solely from social media. And, that's a world that I'm not really part of.
So magicians making a living just from social media?
Yeah, some from doing magic. Some have moved into the world of pranks and all sorts of different videos, but with magical thinking. Someone who was very involved with my thinking of going into psychology was a psychologist called Richard Wiseman, who is also a magician, but he creates beautiful videos on YouTube, and some of his videos was some of the first viral videos, so go back a long way, but well worth checking out his channel, Quirkology. That certainly inspired me to go into psychology and connecting those dots between psychology and magic. And he's a prolific author too, so there are magicians that have written books for the public. And something I did during COVID was putting a magic set together. So I went just to keep myself busy. So one of the first, I guess it did become a job. I did my work experience at a toy shop in London, Hamleys, the big toy shop on Regent Street. And there's a magic company called Marvin's Magic. And it's sort of amazing because some of the first magic sets were Marvin's magic sets that I had. He's like the number one maker of these magic sets. And so I was demonstrating magic in Hamleys. I got to meet Marvin, and he's now president of the Magic Circle. So it's funny how things sort of come full circle. And yeah, having that experience of demonstrating magic in that world made me go, let's just do something. And I helped a couple of my friends get into it, and we had market stalls. Just doing that, and I didn't make a huge amount of money doing it. That wasn't really the goal looking back, but it kept myself busy. And it's lovely when I meet people at shows now and they say, my kid loves magic. How can I get into it? And I can say, here's my magic set. These are the tricks I genuinely started with as a young magician.
Oh, right.
And I've got a little video showing me performing them. So
where do you sell them?
It's on my website, yeah.
So they have to go to your website to buy. You're not on Amazon or anything. Your magic set.
No, do you know what? It's like I say, I treat my performing magic really as my income stream, and I'm probably not as business-minded as I should be with the other stuff. But you can buy it on my website if you're interested. Yeah.
Oh, good. And how much does it sell for on your website?
I should know the answer. It's
the B-roll on the film.
It's worth every penny, however much it is.
Sounds like it will be.
I genuinely put a lot of effort into making videos showing me performing the magic tricks because, I was pretty good at reading the instructions when I got a magic set, but I realized that turns a lot of young people off. So I thought, for me, it was really important that genuinely, when I say you can pick this up and do it, that you can just watch the videos, pick up the props, and you can do the magic tricks as I'm showing them. So, yeah.
So if I just want how at a party, just having a little magic trick, what's a easy go-to magic trick I can pull out of my pocket or my handbag and do to impress? Anything? Any tips?
It's going to sound like we've set this up, but genuinely the magic tricks on my website are really simple things you can pick up. Oh, so good. I've got special packs of cards that don't take hours of knuckle busting practice. If you don't want to sit in your bedroom for hours and hours, these are props that really are designed by people smarter than myself to make the magic as easy as possible.
Cool.
So you can focus on performing.
Do you ship internationally? We ship them to America.
Yeah, I ship internationally. Yeah.
Oh, nice. And do you have
Am I going to get lots of orders now?
It's such a great field, and I feel like I'm shocked at only 300 kids are in the magic circle. It seems like I would assume I think you were going to say a number like thousands, because it's not a crowded field, is it?
Go on.
So when I was looking for a magician for a party, it's hard to find magicians. It seems like they're few and far between, which seems like a great occupation opportunity for someone who's inspired to be a magician.
I think there are lots of people that love magic, and I think that in a way is sometimes the best place to be. An amateur is someone that loves what they do.
Yeah.
And I know that word has some negative connotations, but most magicians are amateurs. That people that have jobs and love magic that will do the odd show. And that's
like a side
fine.
hustle.
Yeah, but that means, in terms of magicians that are doing it full time, it is quite a small group, actually, smaller than you may think. There are lots of magicians, but for the number of events and, things, especially when you look at London, they're very concentrated, lots of different types of work for magicians. It is quite small. And especially if you do something a bit different, which is what I try and do. And quite proud that when people see me at shows, even if they've seen a magician, they might say, oh, I've never seen this style of magic. And I think, ultimately, if you do what you love and follow a path, then there will always be work out there. Sometimes you just need to be a bit smart in how you market yourself and to find it. But I think following your passion will lead you to an interesting place for sure.
So do you have any magic you want to do? You want to do a little
Yeah, do you know what? This is going to sound like a bit, but it's genuinely something I've never done before.
Okay.
Yeah, let's try this. I'm going to make it. I don't want the camera to see this. I'm going to.
Okay, well, I'll in post-production, I'll pick which camera.
Sure.
I'll keep the magic alive.
I'm going to make a little prediction. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of a little bit of an overthinker. It kind of goes back to the psychology we were talking about earlier, but do you ever have a conversation with someone? I'm sure after today I'll think about something I said and did that sound silly? That feeling, do you get that?
Yes, I'm always overthinking.
Yeah, I think we kind of all do it, right, from time to time. It's human nature, but something from studying psychology I'm kind of interested in is if you're asked a question about something you don't know the answer to, if you go with that first instinct, gut response, intuition, whatever you want to call it, it's often more accurate than if you're given time to think about it. Basically, we overthink things. And this is particularly true when the answer's a number. So I'm going to ask you some questions. Okay. No pressure. I just want you to try and genuinely go with that inner voice. Don't overthink it.
Okay, fine.
So you're going to follow along on a calculator. So you can grab the calculator. Okay. And I have made a prediction. I'm going to put this down here.
I'll show it's just
there's this calculator, right? It's your calculator. Just hit clear, make sure it's on 0.
Yep, it's on 0.
And I'm going to ask you some questions. First answer that comes to mind. So don't worry. Just first question. I want to see how connected we are, how in sync. Okay. What year do you think I was born? Now, we've had some clues, I guess, over this.
We've had some clues.
Just whatever pops into your mind, no offense.
Should I put it on the calculator?
Yeah. And you can tell me out loud if...
1990.
Type that in. That is pretty close. Hit multiply.
Okay.
Think about your family, your immediate family, say partner. You've got a kid or two?
Yeah, I have 2 kids, yeah.
Don't try and work it out. I know that's a temptation. What do you think the average age of your family is?
25?
Type it in. It equals, so you should have a pretty big number now.
I should say I'm terrible with math.
No, that's okay. It doesn't matter because, like I said, we want to go with your inner voice. I want this to mean...
I pressed equal, so 1990 times that number.
Yeah, so you've got a big number now.
Yeah.
Hit multiply again.
Okay.
Let's go with... I feel like I know you, the amount we've got in detail today, but how many minutes? Try and be precise since we met. So today, how many minutes do you think we've met?
Okay, I think maybe 100 minutes.
So multiply by 100.
Okay.
Equals, so you should have a pretty big number now.
Yep.
Then hit plus.
Okay.
How many podcasts do you think you've made?
Oh, I know exactly. Should I tell you?
No, it doesn't matter. You can keep it secret. Hit equals.
Okay.
Can I just see the answer now? You got 4,975,008. Does that number mean anything to you genuinely?
No. 4,975,008. No?
No. Do you know what? I did ask you to go with the intuition, but it's okay. I know it's difficult. There was a little bit of hesitation, right?
Yeah.
I want one last number, but I want this to be really random.
I hope the microphone is...
It's all good. It's real. So hit plus.
Okay.
Here's what I want you to do. It might be easy if I hold the phone.
Okay.
Put your finger in front of the keypad. And then close your eyes and just tap. Go 7 times.
Can I open my eyes?
Yeah, you can open your eyes. That was the number you typed.
Okay.
Take it back.
Okay.
Hit equals.
Okay.
And what number do you have?
12,814,421.
Wow. Does that mean anything to you?
No.
Are you sure?
No. I don't think it
Do you remember I
is.
made a prediction before we started? Keep that there. My prediction. 1, 2, 1, 4,
814421. How did you do that?
Oh, hold on, look at it now. Does this mean anything to you? Because I was trying to get a bit of you in this.
Yeah, no, it doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah, sometimes you kind of need to see things from a different
I'm hoping
perspective.
it's the bank account amount that's going to be in my bank account in one day.
It may be the amount I make from magic trick sales after this goes out.
You make the magic, exactly.
But here's the thing. Sometimes you kind of need to see things from a different perspective.
Right. Are you going to turn it upside down now?
I do.
Get out of town. No way. Okay, you have to show it to that camera. It says Jennifer. Upside down. Okay, that is crazy that you were able to do that.
And that was just you following your
You did say
intuition.
you studied math.
I did, yeah.
But how did you write it down beforehand? Oh, see, I know why you're the winner. This has been so excellent. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to say? Advice for young people, young magicians, just in general? Any SuccessFou advice or templates you want to share?
I think, yeah, because there is something that comes to mind. When I was at school, it was a very academic school. And like I said, the question you always asked was, what are you going to study at uni? Not, is uni right? And I'm not saying it wasn't the right decision, but I remember speaking to careers advisors and say, I want to be a magician. And they would say, that's nice, but what do you want to do for a living? And so that was a little bit frustrating to hear, but I know it came from a good place. You know, people just didn't know you could do that. But I remember really thinking about this a lot, and my secondary school did invite me back to talk to the kids. And so I really remember thinking, what would I say to me at that age? And I remember being at school, you know, like I said, I did maths, further maths, physics, and I knew that's not what I wanted to do for a living. And I think that's really good. Knowing what you don't want to do means you're one step closer to the things you do want to do. So I think it's so tough being at 14, 15, trying to make decisions that you think are so important. What grades am I going to get? Feel like the end of the world if I don't. Like, it's really not. It's important, but don't feel like your decisions you make at 15 are going to change your life, because, you know, you can do anything at any point. But I think just being aware that if you don't like something, knowing that is really valuable as much as knowing things you do like. And then the second thing is really follow your dream. And this is as much important for parents as much as kids. It's like, I think saying you can't do something to your kids, it comes from a place like the careers advisors where you want them to have a safe, stable life. But actually, I think the more we look at today, the less those stable jobs like doctors, nurses, you know, in all these industries.
Or anything you're doing that you don't want to be doing.
Right. So why do something you don't want to do when it's not even that security that it maybe once was? So I think the best thing you can do as a parent is like give space for your kids to experiment and fail. Failure is good. Like, if you go down a path that is the dream, like, as you grow up in life, you meet more and more people who regret not following their dreams, but you never ever meet someone that regrets going down that path. Because even if you don't end up achieving that thing you dreamt of as a kid, often you'll end up on a path related to it. Maybe you dream of being an actor and then you study at RADA or wherever and you don't quite get those roles, but by going through that process you meet set designers and costume designers and sound, and you're like, oh, I like this area. And you know, I've got friends in all these areas that never dreamt of doing that as a kid, but are in a field they love because they followed their passion and they end up doing something related to their passions. They still love it.
Yeah.
You know, not everyone is going to achieve that thing they want to do as a kid, but if you don't go down the path, you'll never know those opportunities that are out there. So yeah, just try and follow your passion. And
so
you never know where you may end up.
Yeah, that's great advice. I like that a lot. There's I interviewed a couple of weeks ago Adam Cox, who is a hypnotist, and he he said there is no failure, very similar to what you said in a different way. But he said there's no failure. There's either you win or you learn. There's no win or lose.
Yeah.
You win or you learn. And if you don't try, you don't know.
For sure. And I think that goes back to my early experience. Failure for me, what it felt like at the time, I now look back and I learned a lot from that experience, right?
Yeah.
So that is...
Are you referring to not winning?
Yeah, that big competition when I was 17.
Failure.
But at the time, as a kid,
you
you big it up so much in your head and it feels like failure. But, looking back, I'm actually pleased things worked out how they did. Like I say, I think too much success as a kid can really... I think we've all seen out of control egos, and I hope that's not me, but I can see how that would have become that if I'd have just won everything. And yeah, I think a bit of failure is good.
Thank you. And when's your next public show that I can buy tickets to?
So I don't know when this is going out, but there are some shows that are going to be announced very soon.
And they'll be on your website?
Yeah, so the best way to hear about any of my public bits is to follow me on the socials. I have a mail list, like I say. I don't spam, but just a few times a year I'll post upcoming dates, and it'll all be there.
Excellent. Well, I suggest everyone come watch you because you're magnificent. And the thing I love about magic is it is real, and you can then see magic in your own life and create. It gives you, what I love about it is it creates a possibility of anything is possible. Edward Hilsum, thank you so much for coming on the SuccessFou podcast. It has been an absolute honor to be sitting in the presence of greatness. I think it's really obviously a gift that you have, and then you cultivated it to a level of mastery, and it's really been an honor. Thank you. And that magic trick is superb. So anyone listening to this on a podcast, you have to see the audio and visual aspect of this podcast. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Jennifer.
Such a pleasure. Thank you.